It started with something simple. A craving not for food, but for closeness. That morning, I had woken up early, well before the alarm, and watched Daniel sleep. His face looked peaceful, boyish even, a contrast to the sharpness he wore during the day. Lately, our schedules had been out of sync. He left before sunrise, returned late, always with an excuse: deadlines, strategy meetings, mergers, clients. I missed him. Or maybe I missed who we used to be. So I made lunch. Not just a sandwich and chips kind of lunch, but real food, his favorite. Roasted red pepper pasta with grilled chicken, packed carefully in a glass container. I even included a tiny note on top. "You're the best part of my day." Cheesy maybe, but honest. I got dressed with more intention than usual, nothing too flashy, just a soft blue blouse and jeans. Something about bringing lunch to your husband at work felt domestic, familiar. Like a little scene from A Better Time, I parked outside his office downtown, staring up at the glass tower where he spent most of his life now. I hadn't been inside in months. He used to love showing me around, introducing me to coworkers like I was a prize he'd won. That had faded, like so many other things. But I didn't want to think about that now. I wanted to believe this lunch would be a surprise he welcomed with open arms. The lobby was cool and smelled faintly of citrus and new carpet. The receptionist, young, bright, all teeth and polish, looked up with a rehearsed smile. "Hi, welcome to Ralston and Moore." I smiled back, gripping the lunch bag like it was a peace offering. "Hi there. I'm here to drop off lunch for my husband, Daniel Carter. He's one of the senior associates." "Oh," she said, a light bulb sparking behind her eyes. "You just missed him. His wife already brought lunch about 20 minutes ago." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" Her smile froze a little, realizing something wasn't quite right. "Wait, aren't you?" But I was already backing away, still holding the bag, my smile brittle and burning. I must have mixed up the time. No worries." I turned before she could speak again, my feet suddenly too loud against the marble. My heart thudded with a new kind of rhythm. Slow, heavy, suspicious. Outside, the air felt heavier than it had a moment ago. I stood near the revolving doors, blinking against the bright midday sun, my fingers tightening around the handles of the lunch bag like they might keep me from falling apart. "Wife." She said his wife. But I'm his wife. I'm Elena Carter, the only one. Aren't I? I walked to the edge of the building, past the smokers and interns, and sat on a cold steel bench by the curb. I didn't know what to do with the food now. The pasta was still warm. The note inside suddenly felt ridiculous, humiliating even. Maybe the receptionist got it wrong. Maybe someone brought lunch for a coworker and said his wife as a joke. Maybe I heard her wrong. That's what I told myself, again and again. Anything to keep from falling into the hole opening up beneath my feet. I waited there for several minutes, hoping maybe I'd see Daniel come down, spot me from across the plaza, smile that familiar crooked smile and say, "Babe, what a surprise." But he didn't. The revolving doors spun with strangers. No Daniel. I pulled out my phone, hovered over his contact. I wanted to call, ask casually, joke even. "Hey, I came by with lunch, but looks like someone beat me to it. You doubling up these days?" But I didn't press the button. I couldn't, because somewhere deep inside me, a quiet, gnawing part of my heart already knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a joke. I stood up, the glass container still in my hand, and walked to the nearest trash can. I hovered there, unsure. It was still warm, still mine, still made with love. But it didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. I slowly lowered it into the bin, hearing the soft thud as it landed on top of someone else's forgotten mess. The note, too. Just paper. Just ink. By the time I got to my car, I realized I was shaking. Not from rage. Not yet. Just confusion. A low, heavy cloud of dread forming over me, pressing down. I drove home in silence, both hands on the wheel, eyes too focused on the road, my chest tight, my thoughts louder than traffic. "Wife," she said, "wife." But I hadn't even left the driveway before I knew I wasn't letting this go. I told myself it was nothing. over and over. A slip of the tongue, a mix-up, a harmless mistake. The receptionist must have been new, or maybe she confused me with someone else. Daniel had co-workers, assistants. Maybe one of them dropped something off and joked about being his work wife. Maybe. That word spun in my head like a slow dripping faucet. Wife, wife, wife. Not a friend, not someone, not a colleague. She said it so naturally, like it wasn't even a question. His wife already came by, and the way she looked at me surprised, confused when I didn't answer. She didn't recognize me. Back at home, the silence felt thicker than usual. I walked from room to room, pretending to tidy up, but all I was really doing was looking for proof of normalcy. His keys were in the bowl by the door. His sweater was slung over the back of the chair. His watch sat on the tray by the sink, where he always left it after washing up. These were the artifacts of routine, of a shared life. But none of it felt solid anymore. Like everything was exactly where it should be, yet wrong. Like someone had copied the pattern, but not the feeling. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our photos. Our last selfie was 3 weeks ago. We were at a friend's engagement party. I was smiling. He was half smiling, his arm around me loosely, like he was already somewhere else. I zoomed in on his eyes, looking for something. A sign. A crack. Nothing. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to read. My eyes scanned the same paragraph over and over. I kept listening for the sound of the garage door, the beep of the alarm being disarmed. At 7:46 p.m., it finally came. The door creaked open, and his voice followed, casual, tired. "Hey, babe. I'm home." I looked up, practiced my smile. "Hey? Long day?" "The worst," he groaned, setting his bag down. "Meetings back to back. I didn't even get to eat properly." I blinked. My heart paused. "You didn't eat?" He shrugged, heading for the fridge. "Just grab something quick with Greg. Barely counts." I nodded, saying nothing. The words caught in my throat like splinters. I didn't mention the receptionist, or the lunch, or that someone else had already fed him. He moved through the house like always, tossed his shoes by the door, stretched his arms, groaned about deadlines. But to me, it all looked different. Like I was watching an actor who had studied my husband's movements but didn't quite get the rhythm right. He poured himself a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and asked about my day. I answered, mechanical and vague. Something about emails, groceries, nothing real. He didn't seem to notice. We sat down to eat. I'd made soup. He complimented it without looking up, spooning it quickly into his mouth like he was trying to be somewhere else. I watched him chew, swallow, reach for the pepper. The simple, ordinary motions that used to feel intimate now looked foreign, and all I could think was, who did you eat with? I watched the way his hand cradled the bowl, the little burn mark on his wrist from when he grabbed a hot pan last month. The shirt he wore, it was new. Pale gray, no wrinkles. I hadn't washed it. I hadn't seen it in our closet. My heart started to beat faster. Was it hers? Had she bought it for him? Did she call him babe too? After dinner, he retreated to the office, claiming he had emails to catch up on. I lingered in the kitchen, cleaning slowly, wiping things that were already clean. I listened for the click of the keyboard, but the house was quiet. I crept closer. Just silence. No typing, no calls. Just the soft creak of his chair shifting now and then. I didn't knock. I didn't ask. I couldn't. Later that night, we got in bed. He kissed my forehead like always, but the warmth didn't stay. His body curled away from mine, facing the wall, already drifting. I stared at the ceiling. My side of the bed felt colder than usual. I reached for my phone in the dark, scrolled back to my calendar. I couldn't remember the last time we made love. 2 weeks? Maybe 3. My throat tightened. Maybe longer. Daniel sighed in his sleep, deep and easy. I lay there next to him, stiff and sleepless, drowning in the space between us. My hand rested on my stomach, the place I used to imagine growing something sacred with him. Now it just felt hollow. Something was wrong. Something was happening, and I didn't know how to stop it. It happened on a Thursday. One of those forgettable evenings where the air smells like leftover rain, and the television hums in the background, half-watched. I was folding laundry on the bed, sorting socks into messy pairs, when Daniel came in from the shower, a towel slung around his waist, and his hair damp, curling slightly at the edges like it always did. He looked relaxed, comfortable, too comfortable. I asked him something I don't remember what. Probably about takeout or plans for the weekend. He answered with a laugh, digging through his drawer for boxers. That's when I saw it. He moved too quickly. Too deliberately. A small, flickering motion under the stack of t-shirts. A sleek, black phone one I didn't recognize. Not his regular one. Smaller, thinner. No case. He caught sight of me looking, and in one seamless motion, he slid it beneath a pile of folded clothes like it was a reflex. Like hiding it was something he'd done before. My smile stayed frozen on my face. New phone? I asked, trying to sound playful. He didn't miss a beat. Oh, that? Old one. I keep it for work contacts, barely use it. Oh. I nodded slowly. Didn't know you had two. Didn't I mention it? He shrugged, slipping into his boxers, his back turned. I keep forgetting it even exists. It's always dead. But I saw it. Lit up when he grabbed it. A notification flashing across the screen too quickly for me to read. It wasn't dead. It wasn't forgotten. It wasn't for work. I looked back down at the laundry, my fingers shaking slightly as I reached for another sock. He moved past me to the dresser, humming something under his breath, casual as ever. And yet everything in me screamed. We'd shared a bed for 7 years. A life. Secrets. I knew the way his jaw clenched when he was lying. I knew the calmness he wore like a mask. This wasn't about a second phone. This was a second life. I called Rachel the next morning. My best friend since college, the one person who'd seen me at every version of myself. Elated, heartbroken, drunk on hope, or wine, or both. I didn't even say hello. Just whispered, I think something's wrong with Daniel. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice dropped calm and razor sharp. Tell me everything. I sat on the floor in the hallway, back against the wall, voice shaking as I recounted the receptionist's words. The phone, the lies, the unfamiliar shirt. Each detail sounded more ridiculous when I said them out loud. Paranoid, petty, desperate. But Rachel didn't laugh. She didn't even interrupt. When I finished, she exhaled. You know it's not nothing, right? I want it to be nothing, I whispered. But it's not. Her voice was gentle. So we watch. Quietly. No fights. No accusations. Just watch. It felt wrong. Like betrayal. But also like survival. That night, I started noticing everything. The way he always placed his phone face down now, even during dinner. The sudden uptick in gym visits always after work. Always just long enough to feel suspicious. The new cologne he claimed a client had gifted him. The way he smiled at his phone, not when texting me, but after. I began memorizing his routines. 6:15 a.m. Alarm. Shower, shave. Black coffee. No cream. Leaves by 7:05. I watched his closet closely. Noted which shirts he started reaching for the newer ones. The tighter ones. I watched the way he stood in the mirror adjusting his collar, touching his hair like a man trying to impress someone. Someone new. Rachel created a spreadsheet. Track patterns, she said. If you're going to confront him, you need proof, not just a feeling. So I did. Notes in my phone. Screenshotting our shared calendar when he claimed meetings. Saving receipts from his pockets when I did laundry. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. A name. A message. A lie spelled out in bold letters. But mostly, I was waiting. Waiting for him to slip up. Waiting for confirmation that the man I shared my home with was already gone. That I'd been replaced quietly, invisibly by someone who didn't even know I existed. It had been a week since I'd seen the second phone. Since Rachel and I began our quiet investigation. Since the distance between Daniel and me had become a silent third presence in the house, watching, waiting. I told him I was meeting Rachel for lunch downtown. But instead, I parked 2 blocks away from his office, across the street, behind a line of tinted windows at a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and rain. My fingers were cold around the cup. I kept stirring even when there was nothing left to mix. He was in there somewhere, on the 14th floor, probably on a call or smiling at someone who didn't know he became a ghost in our home. At 1:22 p.m., the lobby doors opened. She was tall, polished, perfect in the way that made you instinctively pull your coat tighter. A fitted camel coat, long dark hair, glossy, red lips, nude heels. She walked with the kind of ease that said she belonged not just in the building, but in someone's life. The receptionist spotted her instantly. Bright smile, familiar wave. "Mrs. Carter," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You left your umbrella last time." The woman laughed soft, effortless. "I always forget something. Daniel just stepped into a meeting. Do you want me to text him?" She shook her head. No, I just came to drop off the keys." "Keys? For what?" My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I watched as she handed over a small envelope and turned, walking past the glass where I sat just feet away. She didn't look in. She didn't see me. But even if she had, she wouldn't have recognized me. Why would she? To her, I didn't exist. I waited until she was gone, heels clicking away on the wet pavement, and then I left. I didn't cry. Not there. Not yet. But inside, something cracked. I felt it. A jagged shift. Like reality had tilted, and I was the only one standing still. She had my name, my husband, my life, and I had nothing but questions. That night, Daniel was at the gym, or so he said. He texted at 7:03 p.m. "Running late, love you." I stared at the screen for a long time before locking the phone. The words made my skin crawl. Love you. From a man who let another woman wear my name in public like a tailored suit. I waited 10 more minutes, heart thudding, then went into his home office. It felt invasive. But that sensation passed quickly. Desperation does that. It strips away your manners, your fear, your patience. The drawers were locked. Of course they were. But Daniel had always been lazy about hiding things. The key was in his top dresser drawer, inside a cufflink box. I'd found it once when I was helping him pack for a conference. He never knew I noticed. I slid it in, turned, and the drawer opened with a soft click. Inside, folders, neatly labeled, pay stubs, contracts, travel receipts. But it was one plain envelope, no label, that caught my eye. Inside, folded sheets. I opened them one by one, my breath catching at each line. Rental agreement. Lease start. 7 months ago. Location. Westbridge Towers. Unit 304. A second apartment. Not in his name, some generic LLC, but the emergency contact listed Daniel Carter. His phone number. His signature. Another sheet. A purchase from a high-end furniture boutique mid-century sofa, velvet curtains, a bar cart. None of it lived in our house. Receipts for Uber rides. Flowers. Dinner reservations at places he never took me, all paid with his business credit card. Stupid. Arrogant. I sat on the floor, paper spread around me like fallen leaves. My fingers trembled as I touched the ink, the dates. He built another life, one drawer away from me. From the woman who made him coffee every morning, who folded his socks, who still waited for him to come home, I heard the garage door open, the quiet hum of his car. I shoved everything back, locked the drawer, slid the key back into its spot, and straightened my hair in the hallway mirror. Smiled at myself. Practiced stillness. Calm. He walked in minutes later, hair damp, gym bag over his shoulder. "Hey babe," he said casual, "what's for dinner?" I smiled sweetly, like a woman who didn't just find proof of her husband's double life. "Pasta," I said softly. "Your favorite." We sat in Rachel's car, windows slightly fogged, the air inside thick with tension and cold coffee. The windshield wipers moved in slow, tired sweeps. Outside, the city pulsed with Friday night noise horns, laughter, neon reflections sliding across puddles. But none of it touched us. We weren't part of that world anymore. We were hunting ghosts. Daniel had said he was working late. A strategy dinner. Whatever that meant. But we were parked a block from Westbridge Towers, the same address from the lease I found tucked away in his drawer. Rachel's fingers drummed on the steering wheel, the only sign of her impatience. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. At 8:41 p.m., he arrived. His car pulled into the private garage entrance. Sleek. Black. Clean. Like him. Like everything he tried to keep hidden. We watched from the corner, headlights off. My breath caught as the gate lifted and swallowed him whole. "I need to get closer," I whispered. "No," Rachel said, her voice firm. "We wait. We watch." It felt like hours. My hands were numb. My heart wouldn't slow down. And then, just as the night felt like it might swallow us too, she appeared, the woman from the office. The same camel coat, now draped over her shoulders. Hair loose, heels high. She waited just inside the glass doors of the building, like she belonged there, like she was home. Daniel stepped into view, walking toward her with that easy, practiced smile, the one I hadn't seen in months. She opened the door. He kissed her cheek, touched her waist, said something that made her laugh. And just like that, he was no longer mine. Not in that moment. Not in that building. Not in that world. Rachel swore under her breath. "That's her." I nodded, my voice gone. There were no more what-ifs, no more excuses. He had two lives, and I'd just watched him step into the one that didn't include me. I thought I'd scream. I thought I'd pound on the glass, shout his name, drag him into the street, and force the truth out of his mouth like poison. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. Rachel handed me her phone. Camera already open. "Take the shot." My fingers shook as I zoomed in. Through the tinted lobby window, I captured them, his hand on her lower back, her head tilted as she laughed. Their bodies close enough to know this wasn't casual. This wasn't new. Then he kissed her. Not a peck. Not friendly. Not safe. It was the kind of kiss that said, "You're mine." The kind of kiss I hadn't felt in over a year. I snapped the photo as his lips touched hers. The shutter clicked, soft but final. Evidence. Rachel exhaled sharply. "Got him." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the image on the screen. A still frame of everything I didn't want to believe. Him. Happy. Her. Glowing. Me. Invisible. "I should go in," I murmured. Rachel grabbed my arm. "For what? To break down in front of them? You want to give him the satisfaction of seeing you shattered?" I didn't answer. My throat felt tight. My stomach churned. "He doesn't deserve a scene," she added. "He deserves a consequence." I nodded slowly. She was right. I wasn't ready, not yet. I didn't want to fall apart in front of him. I wanted to make him fall instead. We sat there in silence as they disappeared into the elevator, the doors closing like a curtain at the end of a show. The kind where the villain wins. For now, Rachel drove me home. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just stared out the window, holding the phone like it was a grenade. When I walked inside, the house was still. My house. My life. But everything felt borrowed now, like a set waiting to be dismantled. I looked at the photo again, zooming in until his smile blurred. And then, I saved it under a new folder. Proof. It took me 3 days to dial the number. 3 days of looking at it, memorizing the digits, then deleting them, only to type them back in again like a compulsion I couldn't shake. The second phone number, Daniel's other life in 10 digits. I'd written it on a Post-it, then rewrote it in my Notes app, and finally saved it under a fake name. Plumber Joe. The irony made me want to laugh. Or scream. Rachel said I should wait. Said we'd already gathered enough. That I didn't need to hear it for myself. But I did. So I waited until Daniel left for work. Coffee cup in hand, quick kiss on my cheek, smile that no longer reached his eyes. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I locked the door, went to the kitchen, and stared at my phone like it might bite me. I pressed call. It rang once. Then again. My breath caught. I didn't know what I'd say. I wasn't even sure I'd say anything. Then she answered, "Hi, babe." Her voice was warm, light, like honey poured over a knife. I didn't speak. "Hello?" she said again, confused now, her tone tightening. "Babe? You there?" I hung up. My hand trembled as I set the phone on the counter like it had burned me. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. There it was. Not just proof in pictures or paperwork, not something I could pretend to misunderstand. Her voice, her nickname for him, her ease, her assumption. "Hi, babe." How many times had she said that? How many days, nights, weekends had they spent wrapped in that lie? And how long had I been the shadow in my own life? I stood in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by the ordinary mugs, sugar jars, tea towels, and none of it felt real anymore. She answered his second phone like it was her first instinct, because to her, it was. I sat on the edge of the bed that night, brushing my hair slowly, methodically, as if the motion could smooth out my thoughts too. The mirror in front of me reflected a woman I almost didn't recognize. Same face, same eyes, but thinner, quieter. Someone who smiled less. Someone who stared longer at things, trying to see beneath the surface. I used to think we were solid, Daniel and I. We laughed at the same dumb commercials. We traveled. We had traditions. Sushi on Fridays. Movie night every second Saturday. I thought those little things were proof of something stable. But now, I wasn't sure. I replayed the last 2 years in my mind like a scratched film reel. The trip he canceled last minute because of a client crisis. The perfume I found on his collar and convinced myself was mine. The weekend he left for a guy's fishing trip and came back sunburned but smelling like sunscreen I didn't own. I remembered our last anniversary. He'd forgotten the date. Claimed he'd been swamped. Made it up with dinner and roses, but his eyes were distant, glassy. I told myself he was stressed. God, I was always telling myself things. Explaining things away, shrinking myself into whatever shape I needed to be to avoid confrontation. Because I trusted him. Or maybe because I didn't want to know the truth. There was a morning 6 months ago where I'd woken up and found him already dressed, standing by the window, staring out. I asked what he was thinking about. He said, "Nothing." Smiled, kissed my forehead, walked away. But it hadn't been nothing. It had been her. It had already started. I looked at the woman in the mirror again, and this time I saw her differently. She wasn't weak. She wasn't naive. She was waking up. The cracks in the mirror weren't flaws, they were revelations. Signs that what I believed was whole had always been broken. And once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. You can only decide what to do next. The night I told Rachel about the phone call, she didn't ask if I was okay. She knew I wasn't. She just handed me a glass of red wine and said, "It's time to go further." The next morning, we met her friend Erin in a quiet corner of a bookstore cafe. One of those places with creaky floors and old jazz playing too loud. He was younger than I expected. Soft-spoken. The kind of man who knew how to disappear into a room even while sitting in it. Rachel didn't waste time. "We need to access a phone. He's hiding things. Photos, messages, the works." Erin nodded slowly, eyes flicking to me. "Do you have the device?" "No," I said. "But I know where he keeps it." Erin leaned forward. "All I need is 10 minutes alone with it. Less, if it's unlocked." It wasn't. I told him that. "Then I need 20, he said, like it was no big deal. The plan was simple. Rachel would invite Daniel to a gallery opening that Friday, something he couldn't easily decline without raising suspicion. I'd stay behind, pretend to have a migraine, play the understanding wife. Once he left, I'd retrieve the second phone from under the drawer in the closet where he thought I hadn't looked. And I did. That night, with my hand shaking, I pulled it out like it was evidence in a courtroom, and handed it to Aaron, who'd come to the house with his laptop in a nondescript backpack. He worked quietly at the dining table, eyes focused, typing fast. I stood by the kitchen sink, pretending to wash dishes that were already clean. Rachel paced. 5 more minutes, Aaron said. When it was done, he handed the phone back like it was radioactive. "You've got a full clone," he said. "Everything he's texted, deleted, saved. It's yours now." I thanked him. My voice sounded distant, unreal. After he left, I just stood there holding the USB drive, It felt too small for something that might destroy my life. Rachel whispered, "You ready?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. The screen lit up like a wound. It was all there. Every text, every photo, every little digital footprint from the phone Daniel thought he'd hidden so well. Rachel sat beside me, silent, supportive, her eyes scanning as I clicked through the cloned contents. My laptop fan whirred like it knew the weight of what it was carrying. The first message I opened was from her, Nicole. Her name, in bold, casual, too familiar. "Hi, babe. Made your favorite pasta tonight. Come by after work? I miss you. Love, your wife." I stopped breathing. Your wife? The words blurred for a second. My vision swam, but I forced myself to keep reading. "Woke up today and touched your side of the bed. Cold. Don't stay away too long, Mr. Carter." I scrolled further. There were photos, selfies of them together, on patios, in bed, by pools, her feet on his lap, her fingers curled around his. Their foreheads pressed together in that way you only do with someone you think you truly belong to. There was a video too short, too painful, him laughing as she opened a small velvet box. A necklace. His voice saying, "You deserve it, Mrs. Carter." Hers. "I'm already yours. Always." I had to stop, but I didn't. I read a conversation from a few weeks ago. Her asking about baby names. Him joking that, "Our daughter better get your curls." My stomach turned. They were talking about a future, building a life. While I folded his laundry and made him dinner and kissed a man who was already someone else's husband in every way that mattered, I sat back, the weight of it crashing into me. Not just betrayal, but erasure. He hadn't just cheated. He'd replaced me. Rachel reached over, took my hand. I didn't realize I was crying until she brushed away a tear. "I'm not his wife," I whispered hollow. "She is." Rachel squeezed my hand. "No, she's the lie. You're the truth." I looked down at the screen again. The messages kept coming, kept glowing, kept breaking me open in slow, deliberate slices. But now I had what I needed. Not just pain, proof. The next morning, I woke before the Sunday I didn't need an alarm. My body was buzzing with a cold kind of clarity. I wrapped myself in a robe, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began to trace back everything. Every detail, every receipt, every lie. Daniel was still asleep upstairs, breathing easy in a bed that didn't belong to just me anymore. And while he slept, I built the story he never meant for me to read. I opened a blank document and titled it Timeline. It started 16 months ago. I found the first hotel receipt out of town, midweek. He told me it was a client retreat, but he never mentioned the room service for two, the wine bar charge, the flower delivery the next day. I matched text to dates, pictures to trips. There was a Valentine's Day dinner at a restaurant I'd never heard of. I'd spent that night home alone with takeout, Daniel, working late on a pitch. He sent me a sleepy "love you" at midnight. 30 minutes after he'd sent Nicole a photo of chocolate-dipped strawberries and a message that said, "You make everything sweeter." I found weekends I thought he was at conferences. Days I believed he was stuck in traffic. Mornings where he kissed me goodbye and drove straight to her. Her. I saw it all with fresh eyes now. The gradual detachment. The unexplained mood swings. The way he pulled away whenever I reached for intimacy. He hadn't just cheated. He'd been living two parallel lives with surgical precision. Wife hash shown and wife hash two. Me and her? I zoomed in on a photo from 8 months ago. Him and Nicole at a winery, smiling under string lights, her hand on his chest. The caption said, "Happy anniversary." 8 months ago, that's when I felt the first real fracture. When I'd asked if we could go away together and he said, "This isn't a good time." No, it was a perfect time for her. For them. I stared at the timeline, the cold columns of dates and lies, and realized something brutal. There hadn't been an us in a long time. Just him. And two women who had no idea about each other. Her name was buried in the contact list like any other. No hearts, no emojis. Just Nicole Graham. Clean. Clinical. Like he thought that would somehow protect her, protect them. But she wasn't just a fling. She was everywhere. I searched her name, starting with the bare minimum. A simple Google search led to a LinkedIn profile: marketing executive, boutique firm, polished headshot, the kind of smile that radiated confidence and unbothered charm. She looked perfect. Not threatening, not cruel, just unaware. But she wasn't unaware. I found an email thread, buried in the cloned phone. He'd forwarded her a lease contract, the Westbridge apartment, with a note that said, "It's ours now. A fresh start. Ours." Another message showed a scanned RSVP to a wedding invitation. Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Carter. I stared at the file for a long time. My lungs felt like they forgot how to work. It was dated 4 months ago. A destination wedding in Mexico. I remembered that weekend. Daniel told me he was going to a leadership summit in Phoenix. I packed his bag, kissed him goodbye at the airport, while he boarded a plane to paradise with her. Then I found it. A digital image tucked in a folder labeled N. A scanned marriage certificate. State of Nevada. Daniel C. Carter and Nicole A. Graham. I read the lines 3 times before I believed them. It wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just sex. He married her. He married her. I stood up too fast, the chair screeching across the kitchen tile. My heart thundered in my ears. My vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to call him and ask who the hell I was supposed to be now. But I didn't. Instead, I sat back down. I stared at that document. I saved it, backed it up twice, uploaded it to Rachel's encrypted folder. And then I whispered her name aloud for the first time. Nicole. It tasted bitter. Not because she had him, but because she believed she did. Because he'd told her the same story he once told me. And she bought it. Just like I did. The certificate didn't sit right with me, not just emotionally, but legally. How could he marry her? How could a second marriage exist when the first one, ours, had never ended? Rachel and I sat in her apartment that afternoon, her laptop glowing between us. Maybe it's fake, she offered. People forge things all the time. Could be a symbolic thing. He might have lied to her too. That should have been a comfort. But I knew Daniel. If he was anything, he was precise, calculated, lies with scaffolding strong enough to stand on. So we dug deeper. Rachel knew someone who worked in private records. Discreet, expensive, worth every cent. 3 days later, she sent a single-line text. It's real, but there's more. I clicked the PDF she attached. Nevada marriage records. Daniel Christopher Carter, except he didn't use that name. Not exactly. He dropped the middle name, changed the birthday by 1 digit. Just enough to slide under the radar, to dodge automatic alerts, to create a second version of himself. It was him. Still him. Just cleaner. Sharper. Fiction in government ink. He'd created a second identity without ever leaving the country. Married Nicole under it. Filed taxes separately. Built a paper trail meticulous enough that, to the state of Nevada, Elena Carter didn't even exist. I felt sick. I reread the document over and over, thinking maybe I'd find a crack in it. A mistake. A loophole. But no. It was real. My husband wasn't just a liar. He was a bigamist. The word felt foreign, outdated. Something from an old movie or courtroom drama. Not my life. But there it was. 2 wives. 1 man. And a secret so heavy it had nearly gone unnoticed if not for 1 receptionist. 1 slip. 1 homemade lunch. It happened on the bathroom floor. I was folding towels, something simple, something automatic, when I saw one of his shaving razors on the sink. A duplicate of the one in his travel bag. The one he probably left at Nicole's. And I broke. Not with a scream, not with shattered glass, but with silence. I slid down the wall, sat on the cold tile, and let it happen. The shaking, the tears, the emptiness. My chest caved inward like my ribs forgot their job. I wrapped my arms around my knees and rocked. The towels fell in a heap beside me. I didn't care. I thought about our wedding day. I thought about the way he'd whispered forever into my ear during our first dance. The way his hands held mine like they meant it. I thought about the quiet mornings, the inside jokes, The nights we stayed up dreaming about kids and kitchens and summer vacations. I thought about how none of it was real anymore. Maybe it never had been. I cried until my face burned, until I couldn't remember what breathing without pain felt like, until I hated myself for not seeing it sooner. Then I stopped. Not because I felt better, but because I was done being broken. This man, this coward, had carved my life in half, stitched lies into every corner of it, and walked between two worlds like a magician pulling off the perfect trick. But now, the curtain was down. The wires were visible. The illusion was over. I sat up, wiped my face, pulled myself off the floor like it was the last thing I'd ever do for him. And I whispered the only truth I had left. I'm not the victim. No more crying behind doors. No more waiting for proof. No more letting him shape the narrative. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And I was done waiting in silence. We started with a folder, a plain black one from Rachel's supply closet, marked only with a single label, Carter Evidence. Inside, printed receipts, screenshots, timelines, and a USB drive with the cloned phone files. I organized it with surgical precision, each piece, another stitch in the wound, another nail in the mask Daniel had worn so easily. Rachel kept the backups. We didn't speak much while we worked. We didn't need to. There was a rhythm to it now, a shared focus. The ache in my chest hadn't disappeared, but it had hardened into something sharper, something useful. I found more than I expected. 2 Valentine's Days, 3 anniversaries, an entire second Christmas-decorated apartment, wrapped gifts, handwritten card. I kept each one like an exhibit. Exhibit A, a watch he claimed was a corporate gift. Exhibit B, photos of Nicole wearing the same robe I once gave him. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd recycled me. Financial records painted the rest of the picture. I printed our joint account history and compared it with his work reimbursements. There were too many gaps, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Thousands, not hundreds. Rachel narrowed her eyes. This isn't just a double life. He's financing it with your marriage. That word again, marriage. It used to mean something sacred. Now it was paperwork, collateral, a cover story. We cataloged every file, time-stamped every message, and created a paper trail stronger than any apology he might one day try to offer. And I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just surviving the wreckage. I was building my case to burn it all down. Her office was a glass box in an upscale creative building, minimalist furniture, scented air, framed photos of cityscapes. Rachel had helped me craft a fake identity, Elena Morris, marketing consultant. Just another face in a suit, asking for a meeting that didn't exist. Nicole was prettier in person, softer. She wore a peach blouse, tailored pants, and a silver necklace. Daniel had also once gifted me different chain, same charm, a small infinity symbol. She didn't recognize me. Of course she didn't. To her, I was a stranger with a fake name and a fake reason to be there. Sorry for the delay. She smiled, walking me to the lobby. Things have been crazy lately. My husband and I are planning a trip, and I'm drowning in schedules. I smiled back, the weight of her words slamming into my chest like a steel beam. My husband. He had given us both the same title, but she said it with joy, with ownership. She didn't know it was borrowed. I watched her laugh with a coworker at the front desk, light and unbothered. She was planning a future that didn't exist. And somehow, I didn't hate her. She wasn't my enemy. She was another victim. I stood outside afterward, the wind cutting across my face, and wrote one line in the Notes app on my phone. She looks happy, clueless, just like I used to. The divorce attorney's office was cold, in that polished, expensive way, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with law books no one had touched in years. Her name was Madison Burke. Her handshake was firm. Her tone was clear. "Tell me everything," she said, and I did. I started at the receptionist, the second phone, Nicole, the marriage certificate, the bank transfers, the photos, the texts. I laid it out like a timeline of rot. She listened in silence, taking notes, eyes unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back slowly. "This isn't just divorce, Elena. This is bigamy. Fraud. Depending on how deep it goes, Daniel could face felony charges. My mouth went dry. Felony? Yes. 2 legal marriages, if proven, can lead to jail time. And if he used marital assets to support the second household? That's financial fraud. Courts take that seriously. I sat there, staring at the floor. I wasn't sure what I expected. A lecture? Sympathy? A checklist? What I got was resolve. We'll need to move quietly, she continued. No warnings, no confrontations. You have enough to build a strong case, but the more we find, the stronger your position. She slid a manila envelope across the desk. You've already done most of the legwork. Now let's finish it. I left the office with a folder full of legal terms and a new kind of fire in my chest. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was war. And I had a lawyer now. I found it buried in a line of PayPal transfers and business reimbursements. A strange recurring deposit, same amount, same time every month, landing in an unfamiliar bank. It didn't match any of our accounts. Rachel helped me track it. She had a friend at a local bank who owed her a favor. It took less than an hour. The account wasn't under Daniel Carter. It was under the LLC he'd used to lease the second apartment. A dummy business. A shell. Inside it, $74,000. I stared at the screen like it was a foreign language. Some of it had been funneled into a joint account with Nicole Graham. Enough to pay for rent, furniture, vacations, even part of a down payment on a lake house. I felt sick. While I'd been saving for IVF, he'd been saving for a new life. While I cut coupons and tracked grocery budgets, he was funding sunsets and matching robes and beach photos with a woman who thought she was his only one. I printed everything, labeled it, scanned it into the evidence folder. Rachel watched me in silence. Then she said, "You ready for the next step?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at the stack of papers, every dollar, every receipt, every lie turned into ink. Then I nodded. Yes. Let's take it all back. I always imagined revenge would feel loud, explosive, the kind that came with yelling and broken plates and slammed doors. But it turns out revenge, real revenge, is quiet, patient, strategic. Rachel and I didn't just want closure. We wanted documentation, witnesses, legal leverage. So we set a trap. We coordinated with Madison, my attorney, who arranged for a private investigator to be present discreetly, of course. Legally, Daniel's behavior in a public place could be recorded. We just had to get him there. I sent the text on a Tuesday morning. "Can we have dinner Friday?" Just us. I've been thinking a lot. And I want to talk. No fighting, no drama. He replied within 10 minutes. Of course, that means a lot. I'll make reservations. I watched the dots as he typed, erased, typed again. I've missed you too, Elle. I stared at those words. The lies were still so easy for him. Like blinking. The plan was simple. Let him think I was folding. Let him bring his other life closer to the surface. The moment he relaxed, let his mask slip. That was when we'd move. Rachel would sit nearby, inconspicuous. The investigator would be across the restaurant. We'd record everything, tone, language, admissions. Madison said, "The more calm and composed you are, the more his unraveling will work in your favor." I practiced my lines in the mirror. Practiced stillness. Practiced not flinching. Friday came. I wore a black dress he once said made me look dangerously gorgeous. I pinned my hair up, put on red lipstick, my old armor. Rachel looked at me from the passenger seat and said, "You don't look like a woman seeking answers. You look like a woman about to take everything back." I smiled without feeling. That's the plan. As I stepped out of the car, I wasn't afraid. I was ready to meet the liar head on, and I was no longer the one in the dark. The restaurant was dimly lit, the kind of place where every table was just far enough apart to pretend you had privacy. Daniel arrived first. He stood when he saw me, smiling like this was a second chance. "Elle," he said softly, reaching for my hand. I let him. He ordered wine. Told me I looked beautiful. Asked how I'd been sleeping, like he hadn't been sharing a bed with another woman for over a year. I let him talk, about work, about maybe taking a trip together. Somewhere warm, he said. Just us. A reset. I nodded. smiled, took small sips of wine, and then almost too perfectly she arrived. Nicole. She was in heels, tailored pants, a silk blouse. Her hair was down. She carried a small gift bag, walking confidently through the dining room. Toward us. Daniel's smile faltered the moment he saw her. "Elena?" she asked gently, confusion flooding her face. "You're here?" My chest tightened, but I didn't look away. "Yes, I am." She turned to Daniel. "You said you were meeting a client." Silence. He stammered. "Nicole, this isn't—" "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I said, folding my napkin carefully. "Would you like to sit, since we're all here now?" Nicole's face turned pale. "What is this?" "A dinner," I said, looking directly at Daniel. "But not for reconciliation, for revelation." The color drained from his face. His jaw clenched. I saw the flicker of panic the unraveling Madison had predicted. Nicole turned to me, voice shaking. You're his wife?" I nodded. "Legally. Still, you might want to check your paperwork." She dropped the gift bag. It landed with a soft thud. "Forgotten." Daniel stood abruptly. "This is not the time." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, it's the perfect time." Rachel, from her table nearby, gave a tiny nod. The PI across the room was already filming. I turned to Nicole, voice calm. "He married both of us. Lied to both of us. Funded your life with my money." She looked at Daniel like he was a stranger. Because he was. I stood, gathering my purse. "This was your final performance," I said, my voice steel. "You won't be directing this story anymore. End of quote." And then I walked out. He thought I was letting him back in. After the misunderstanding at the restaurant, Daniel had texted me nonstop. Apologies. Justifications. Nicole was confused, he said. It wasn't what it looked like. That was his favorite line, not what it looked like. So I gave him what he wanted. I invited him to dinner. Just us. Candlelight. Soft jazz playing from the speakers. He brought wine and his best performance yet. I greeted him in a silk blouse and warm smile, playing the part of the forgiving wife. He believed every second of it. We sat at the dining table, a bottle of Bordeaux between us. I laughed at his jokes, reached for his hand, looked him in the eye as he lied. "You've been distant," I said gently. He sighed. "I messed up, Elle. But I love you. I want to fix this. I ended things with her. I swear." I leaned closer. "Be honest with me. I can forgive anything but lies." He nodded, swallowing. "It started with one night. I was drunk. Then it got out of hand. She got attached. I didn't know how to stop it. But you married her?" I said soft. "Why?" He blinked. "It was fake. A Vegas ceremony. Just for show. I never filed anything real." "A lie. I wanted her to feel secure," he added quickly. "But you're my wife. I never stopped loving you." And there it was. I reached into my pocket and ended the recording. The tiny mic had caught every word. Every lie. He didn't notice. He was too busy drinking from the glass I'd poured, smiling like he'd just escaped disaster. He didn't realize the real trap had only just snapped shut. The envelope was thick. No note. Just truth. Inside, printed text between him and Nicole, time-stamped. Photos of their wedding. Screenshots of bank transfers. A copy of our marriage certificate. His second alias document. A flash drive with the dinner confession. I mailed it to Nicole's office. Priority delivery. Signature required. 2 days later, she signed for it. 3 hours after that, she stopped posting on social media. No gym selfies, no sweet captions, no more Mrs. Carter. Hashtags. Just silence. Then, the explosion. Rachel texted me screenshots from an anonymous forum frequented by employees at Daniel's firm. The Carter guy? The one with the Porsche? Married 2 women. Saw HR escorting him upstairs. What a clown. Apparently the second wife found out through his real wife. Whole office knows now. The ripple spread like fire. Nicole hadn't stayed silent. She'd confronted him at the office. In front of HR. In front of his team. She sent me one text. "Thank you for showing me. I'm so sorry." I didn't know. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed space for what came next. The scandal was no longer private. Daniel was no longer in control. By Monday, his world was cracking at the seams. Rachel forwarded me a photo, taken by someone at his office. Daniel, standing outside the building, flanked by two men in suits, his face blank. One hand to his temple, the other clutching his phone like it was the only thing holding him together. Nicole had told everything, including how he misused corporate funds to cover flights, dinners, and gifts. An internal audit was already underway. By noon, his name had been removed from the company website. His assistant no longer worked with him. His office door had been closed. The man who once stood tall, polished, charming, was shrinking. I heard from mutual friends that he hadn't gone home in 2 days, probably staying at some hotel. The apartment he shared with Nicole was empty now. She'd packed her things, quietly, completely. Even Daniel's mother called me. "Elena," she whispered, "what's going on? Daniel's not answering. Is something wrong?" I almost laughed. Something was wrong? Everything was wrong. "I think you should ask your son," I replied. "And maybe bring a lawyer." It happened at my request. A family dinner. One last performance, but this time, I was the one directing the scene. I invited both families, mine and his. Told them it was urgent. Told Daniel I was ready to talk openly and heal. He arrived late, dressed sharp but sweating. Nicole arrived separately. I'd asked her to come. And she did. Everyone sat around the table, tension crackling. I stood. "I wanted everyone here tonight," I began, "because I think the truth deserves witnesses." I turned to Daniel, then slid a white envelope across the table. "These are divorce papers. You'll find a full breakdown of your financial misconduct, marital betrayal, and dual identity." His face drained. "Elena." "No," I said firmly, voice steady. "You don't get to speak first anymore." I turned to his parents. "Did you know your son married someone else in Nevada while still married to me? Used our joint savings to build a second life?" Gasps. Confusion. Nicole spoke next. "It's true," she said, voice shaking. "He said he was divorced. He lied to me too." Daniel stood up. "This is insane." "No," I said again. "This is justice." I pulled out a second envelope. "Nicole, this one's for you. Everything he hid, you deserve closure too." She took it. Her hand was steady. Daniel looked around the room at his stunned parents, at her, at me, and realized he was alone. I stepped back. This wasn't rage. It was reckoning. "I won't be your secret anymore," I said. "You don't get to keep pretending. Not here, not to them, not to me." And then I walked out, leaving Daniel in the wreckage of the life he built on lies. The fallout came fast and sharp, like a winter storm you pretend isn't coming until your windows are already frosted. Daniel was formally placed under investigation for financial misconduct. HR released a statement. No further comment during internal legal review. But the whispers didn't stop. He tried to spin the story, of course. Said he was misunderstood. That he was managing a complicated situation. But when your lies come with marriage certificates and stolen money, there's not much room for interpretation. His company cut ties within 2 weeks. Nicole, to her credit, didn't just walk away, she vanished. Changed numbers. Wiped her social media. Moved out of the apartment. Sent one final message to me before disappearing completely. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I hope you find something real again." I didn't reply. Daniel's parents reached out again. Apologized. Tried to justify his state of mind. I let them say what they needed to say, then politely told them I was no longer part of their son's story. The divorce was swift, thanks to the evidence, the funds he funneled, and the fact that bigamy isn't just immoral, it's criminal. Madison made sure every asset was accounted for. I walked away with the house, the car, and most importantly, clarity. He lost everything he tried to hold on to, and I finally let go. The air felt different in the new city. Lighter, brighter, like it didn't know my name yet but was ready to learn. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I left the house that had held too many lies and signed a lease on a small loft 2 states away. A corner unit, tall windows, exposed brick. The kind of space where reinvention didn't just feel possible, it felt natural. I opened a boutique studio, something I'd always dreamed of but never prioritized. Art, design, workshops. I painted the walls myself, put fresh flowers on the counter every Monday. I hung a print near the door that read, "Begin again bravely." Rachel visited often. We drank wine and laughed about things that used to make us cry. The pain hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined me. Sometimes, I still thought about Nicole, wondered where she landed, how she was healing. I hoped she found something solid, something true. As for Daniel, I didn't think of him much anymore. He became something small, distant, like a name on a page I'd finally turned. One Sunday morning, I unlocked the studio early. The city was still quiet. A golden mist hung low in the streets. I made coffee, opened the blinds, and stood barefoot on the hardwood, watching the light spill in. No secrets, no shadows, just peace. The life ahead of me was mine, unborrowed, unbroken, and I finally felt like I was home. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.